Jezebel, the feminist news website, is dead. And I'm still here to gloat. First and foremost, above any and all other considerations, I am here to spit on the grave of a propaganda website. For that is what Jezebel was, is, and will now forever be remembered as. A propaganda website. An activist, ideologically motivated political website, as it was this. First and foremost, long before it was this. Its purpose was never to bring you information, to illuminate you on a subject, or bring you a different point of view. It was to indoctrinate you into the preceding point, and the preceding point only. And, well, such a website of pure propaganda will always have a very limited life expectancy, because it can only exist so long as its thing is popular. And, well, feminism, frankly, even at its most rapaciously popular, was only ever at absolute best tolerated by the majority of the populace. It was something that used fear as a tool before it used love. And that explains why, even after a great deal of exploration, nobody could be found to buy it. The parent company Geo Media tried desperately to get anyone whatsoever, to pay even in marbles for Jezebel, but nobody wanted to. It was a worthless website. It was nothing but a money sink. And so Jezebel and several other employees too have been laid off from Geo Media. And this of course comes in the wake of yet further layoffs as well, as they fired 13 people from the root recently, and just last year they fired even further people too, during a bit of a spat with their, of course, union, because obviously a company like this has a union. And Kotaku as well is hit by staff redundancies. All of the websites are dying. Jezebel is not an outlier here. It is merely just the first domino to fall, as this puts paid to the lie that Geo Media told us just a few years ago that they're totally profitable. Oh no, we're actually earning money. Please believe us, investors, buyers, please, we beg of you, please buy our garbage. We can't get it to work. It's only eating up our cash reserves. Someone save us. But no, over increasing costs, labor disputes, and the torpedoing of any attempts to actually make their companies profitable, Geo Media has struck from the list the first of their big outlets. And personally, I think either The Root or Kotaku is gonna be next, because all of these are remnants of a bygone era, and an era that in and of itself was only a blip on the radar of the internet. These will focus on the idea that news didn't have to be news, essentially. A ridiculous concept that they even tried to argue. I remember during the earlier days of Gamergate, right, there was an interview between Total Biscuit and I think he was the CEO of Kotaku at the time, but some Kotaku employee, right, fairly high ranking. And he tried to explain that the reason why Kotaku did what they did was that they didn't want to deliver objective reality. They weren't interested in giving you the facts or truth or news. They were interested in giving you deliberately biased information. And the reason they gave was, well, here's the thing. Bias is natural. It's impossible to be unbiased. There's no such thing as the truth. Very 2016. And thus, when you read an article on Kotaku, you knew it was mostly bullshit. But you also knew the writer, supposedly, and you knew his particular flavor and brand of bullshit, and somehow that would make things better. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out. Poorly, as it turns out. Well, the idea was, at the end of the day, that it was activist news delivered with an activist slant. It was the idea that their movement was so popular that they could actually make a living of basically singing to the choir, or preaching to the choir is perhaps the more accurate depiction of the phrase. But it didn't work, as the majority of the traffic to these sites right now is clickbait garbage, which is exactly why they try to replace writers with AI. Because surely an unthinking, uncaring machine will be far better at its job than a gaming journalist. But, unfortunately, GO Media went for the cheapest and shittest AI they could possibly find, to the point where it delivered products that were even substandard to the usually subterranean level of the gaming journalist, to the point where when it was asked to make a simple timeline of Star Wars entertainment, movies, TV shows, games, etc., it couldn't even do simple Google searches to figure out when something was produced. And he managed to mess even that up. But on the bright side, the AI can learn. It can look at its errors and go, okay, yeah, I messed up there, I'll try again, and it'll get better. Whereas a gaming journalist, of course, can neither learn from his mistakes or get any better at it. Unless you're talking about making bigger and better mistakes, in which case they have certainly developed a certain penchant and talent for that. And here's the thing, the primary drive for advertisement on these websites, as mentioned, wasn't the whip-smart journalism of Gizmodo or Jezebel talking about important issues that apparently nobody actually gives a shit about, to the point where, again, they couldn't find anyone to buy this shit. Yeah, okay. This is the interesting part, right? I'm obviously boiling and have too much to say on this subject, but for now, I'll just say my heart is with the entire Jezebel staff who just got laid off, including incredible abortion reports at a time when the beat couldn't be more irrelevant to national politics. Please hire them. See, if this was actually important, if somebody actually gave a shit about what you were selling, there would be a market for your products. There would be somebody buying the crap you were shoveling. But as has been thoroughly demonstrated by the fact that no one was willing to pick it up, nobody wants it. It's irrelevant. It's literally sand in the Sahara, and you're just not that good of a salesman. The majority of the articles that actually drive anything on these sites is stuff like, how to recruit the dog in Baldur's Gate, or how to find a piece of clothing, or how to customize your character to look like Ryan Reynolds or whatever. That's the stuff that actually drives the traffic. Dumbass clickbait things that people will Google, like, oh god, I'm stuck at a puzzle. How do I do it? Google, dumbass Baldur's Gate 3 puzzle including dog. Enter. And hopefully, the website will be at the top of the Google searches. This is what the reporters have been complaining about for years as well. It's like, oh, Google isn't showing us the results first. They're showing YouTube. How dare they? We're the establishment, don't they know? Because what they're actually competing for is that dumbass Google search. Not any reports on abortion legislation or women's rights or anything like this. Again, at the best of times, wokeism was tolerated. And I think, as recent events have shown, people are simply fresh out of tolerance. Very, very soon, all of these sites will be gone, because there's no more money. The only reason why they existed to begin with was because the people who owned them viewed them as a useful activist tool, a way to try and shape public perception and point people in the direction they wanted them to go. They had a certain degree of political influence. They don't anymore. They were never earning actual money, and they were always reliant on investor cash to keep going. And the investors in turn had so much money, and money was so easy to come by, that they could afford to put money into ESG funds, who specifically make it clear that they are investing based on ethical guidelines rather than profitability. Moral nonsense rather than money. And now that money is finally beginning to get difficult to get a hold of again, well, websites like this have to actually start earning their clicks. And they were never very good at that to begin with. And with unions already established, with higher paying contracts already signed, and with any effort to actually cut costs by creating the pointless clickbait articles using a robot rather than an employee who needs benefits and health packages and wages, etc., there simply is no future for this kind of journalism. And I intend heavy quotation marks to be placed around that particular word. If you can't make it on the back and the quality of your own content, you certainly can't make it as a website which have hired actually a couple dozen people. Lessons to be learned. But for now, let's just live in the now. We have much more gloating to do in the future. We have many more graves to close and fully forget about. In another decade, we'll look back at this and we will laugh at this so-called culture wars of ours and how our opposition killed themselves. But for now, let's just revel in the moment a little bit. Bask in the afterglow, yes? Jezebel is dead. And that's more than enough reason to have a very, very good day.